She got into the
You look
wrong
completely
car.
wiped
That was
out.
how it started. Not with a plan or a perfectly
I
timed
am.
meeting
It was
or
awful
anything that a
yesterday.
person could later point to and
You
say
look completely
yes.
wiped
That was the
out.
moment. It started with a woman getting into the wrong
I
car
am.
on a rainy
It was
Thursday
awful in there
evening
tonight.
outside Mercy General Hospital on West Madison Street and saying an address before she had even looked at the driver. Ethan Caldwell had been parked in that spot for 11 minutes, eating a sandwich he had bought from a gas station 2 blocks over because the good food in his life had become something he was deliberately avoiding for reasons that would take some explaining. He was wearing a gray hoodie, 3-day stubble, a baseball cap from a university he had not attended, and driving a 2009 Honda Civic that had a crack in the dashboard and a passenger side mirror held in place by electrical tape. None of this was accidental. The back door opened, and a woman dropped into the seat with the particular exhaustion of someone who had been on their feet for 14 hours and had stopped having opinions about anything except getting home. She pushed wet hair out of her face and said, 4417 North Paulina. Please. And I'm so sorry. I know it's raining. I know it's late. I'll tip well. Ethan looked in the rearview mirror. Then he looked at his phone, which was not running any rideshare app because he was not a rideshare driver. Then he looked at the woman in his mirror again. She had not looked at him yet. She was pulling off a hospital ID badge and dropping it into her bag with the mechanical motion of someone ending a shift they had started before sunrise. She had dark circles under her eyes that were honest rather than careless. She was still in scrubs. There was something that might have been coffee on the left sleeve. I'm not your driver, he said. She stopped moving, looked up, met his eyes in the mirror. Oh God. She pressed both hands over her face. I am so sorry. I saw a car idling and I'm sorry. I'll get out. It's raining, he said. I'll get an umbrella. Do you have one? A pause. No. Ethan looked at the rain hitting the windshield. He looked at the address she had given. He looked at the woman in his mirror who had just worked a shift that had clearly taken something from her and was now prepared to stand in the rain rather than ask for anything. North Paulina is 12 minutes from here, he said. Sit down. She looked at him through the mirror. I can't ask you to do that. You didn't ask. Sit down. She sat. He pulled into traffic. For the first 3 minutes, neither of them said anything. The rain hit the car, and the wipers moved, and Chicago slid past the windows the way Chicago does at night, all light and reflection and the particular energy of a city that never fully stops. I'm Nora, she said. Nora Ellis. Ethan, you really didn't have to do this. It's 12 minutes. Still, she was quiet for a moment. Do you live around there? North Paulina. No. Then I'm taking you out of your way. It's fine. She looked at him in the mirror the way people look when they're trying to figure something out. Why were you parked outside a hospital at 8:30 at night eating a sandwich in your car? He almost smiled. She had noticed the sandwich wrapper on the passenger seat. Eating dinner in a hospital parking area. It's a free country. It's also a little unusual, she said. Not unkindly. Just observationally, the way he was learning she did most things. I like watching people, he said. It was true enough. She looked out the window. What do you do? We are not parked outside hospitals watching people. I drive, he said. For work, among other things. She accepted that with a small nod. I'm a nurse, she said. Pediatric floor. Today was a long one. Are they usually long? The ones that matter always are. She said it simply, without self-pity or performance. Just fact. He drove. The rain got heavier for a block and then eased again. Somewhere on North Avenue a traffic light was out, and he navigated around it while she looked out the window at the wet city. You have a crack in your dashboard, she said. I know, and your passenger mirror is taped. Also aware. How old is this car? Older than it looks. She looked at the back of his head in the particular way people look when they're deciding whether to say something. Then she said, I'm not judging it. I take the bus. I was just making conversation. I know, he said. The car has character. She laughed. It was short and genuine and not performed for his benefit. It was the laugh of someone who found something actually funny rather than someone who was being polite. He noted it. He pulled on to North Paulina and found the address. A 3-story walk-up brick, the kind of building that had been solid for 50 years and intended to remain so. Modest. Clean. Real. He stopped at the curb. Thank you, she said. Genuinely. What do I owe you? Nothing. Ethan. Nothing, he said again. Get inside before the rain picks up. She looked at him for a moment. Then she reached in her bag and pulled out a card and held it over the front seat. Then take this, in case you ever need a nurse, or someone to buy you a better dinner than a gas station sandwich. He took the card. Nora Ellis, RN. Mercy General Hospital. A phone number written by hand onto the printed one, which meant she had written it specifically rather than just handing him a standard card. He looked at that handwritten number for a moment after she got out. He looked at it again when he got home. Home, in this current version of Ethan Caldwell's life, was a one-bedroom apartment in Wicker Park that he was renting under a different last name, furnished with things he had bought from secondhand stores over 3 weeks in a deliberate exercise in anonymity. It was the smallest space he had lived in since college, and he slept better in it than he had in years. Ethan Caldwell was 29 years old and the only son of Richard Caldwell, founder and chairman of Caldwell Group, a private equity firm worth approximately $4 billion. He had grown up a house in Lake Forest with 11 rooms and a full staff and every advantage that money could construct and some that it couldn't. He had gone to Northwestern, then Wharton, then directly into the company where his father had been grooming him for a role that everyone in the industry assumed was inevitable. He had lasted 3 years before he needed to leave. Not because he couldn't do the work. He was good at the work, uncomfortably good, with a natural instinct for it that he had not asked for. He left because at 28, he had looked around at every relationship in his life and realized with a clarity that was more frightening than comforting that he could not identify a single person who would be in his life if his last name were different. Not one. Including the woman he had been dating for 8 months who had told him she loved him in the same week. She had told her friend on a phone call he was not supposed to hear that being with Ethan was the smartest financial decision she had ever made. He had ended that quietly and taken the apartment in Wicker Park and bought the Honda and told his father he needed 6 months, and his father, who was a harder man than most people knew and a more understanding one than anyone expected, had said take what you need and called him every Sunday regardless. He was 3 months into those 6 months when Nora Ellis got into his car in the rain. He waited 4 days before he texted the number. He didn't want to seem eager. Then he realized that performing nonchalance for a woman he had driven 12 minutes in the rain was exactly the kind of thing he had left his life to stop doing, and he sent a text. It said simply, "Gas station sandwiches are better than you think. Ethan from the Honda." She replied in 11 minutes. "I stand by my original assessment. But I owe you a proper meal, so prove it." They met at a Thai place on Milwaukee Avenue that she suggested and that he had never been to because it was not the kind of restaurant that appeared on the list his previous life had operated from. It was small and loud, and the tables were close together, and the food arrived fast and was genuinely excellent. She was different outside the hospital and outside the rain. Still direct, still economical with performance, but there was more ease in her when she was not at the end of a 14-hour shift. She talked about her patients the way people talk about things they would choose again, even knowing the cost. She asked him questions that were specific rather than general, which meant she was actually listening to his answers rather than preparing her next question while he spoke. He told her he drove. Private, not rideshare. She asked who for, and he said various people, which was true enough in the life he was currently constructing. She asked if he liked it, and he said he liked being in the city, and she said that was not the same thing as liking the job. And he said she was right, and she let that sit without pushing it. Subscribe right now if you want to know where this story goes, because it is only getting better from here. They met 4 more times over the following 3 weeks. Once for coffee near the hospital on her break, which meant she had 40 minutes and used them efficiently and without apology. Once for a walk along the lakefront that turned into 2 hours because neither of them noticed the time going. Once when her car wouldn't start and she texted him because he was the only person she knew with a car who she could ask without it being complicated, and he came without making it complicated. Once at a food market on a Saturday where they walked around for an hour buying things they didn't need. On the walk, she had said, "Tell me something true about yourself that you haven't told me yet." He had looked at the lake and thought about it. "I'm trying to figure out who I am when no one is watching," he said. "I had a life that looked right from the outside and felt like wearing someone else's clothes on the inside. So I left it. I don't know yet what I'm building instead. She had been quiet for a moment. That's brave. It doesn't feel brave. It feels uncomfortable. Those are the same thing most of the time, she said. He had looked at her then with the specific attention of someone who keeps hearing things from another person that land exactly where they need to land. At the food market, she had bought vegetables she planned to cook that evening and had, without particularly planning it, bought enough for two and then looked at what she had done and said, "If you don't have plans tonight, you could come for dinner. I'll make good soup." Fair warning, the apartment is small. I drive a 2009 Civic with a taped mirror, he said. I don't have opinions about apartment size. She had smiled at that. The real one. Her apartment was on the third floor of the Paulina Street building, and it was small the way she had said and full in the way she had not mentioned. Books on every available surface, not decoratively, but actually read, with pages turned over and spines cracked. A small kitchen table with two mismatched chairs. Photographs on the refrigerator, family and friends, and one a little girl in a hospital gown grinning with a gap in her front teeth that was clearly a patient she was not supposed to photograph but had kept anyway. She made soup, and it was as good as the Thai food and better than anything that had come out of his Lake Forest kitchen growing up. They sat at the small table with the two mismatched chairs and ate and talked, and at some point the eating finished, and the talking continued, and it was 11:30 before either of them looked at a clock. At the door he said, "Nora, yes, I need to tell you something, and I need you to not make any decisions about it tonight. I'm asking you to just hear it and sleep on it, and tell me what you think when you're ready." She looked at him with her direct eyes. "Okay, my name is Ethan Caldwell. My father is Richard Caldwell. Caldwell Group." He watched her face. "I'm not a driver. I mean, I drive that car. That part is real. But it is not what I do for a living. I have money that I have been deliberately not living in for 3 months because I needed to find out if I could build something real with a person who didn't know about it." He paused. "You are the first person I have wanted to tell." Nora stood in her apartment doorway and looked at him. He waited. "Richard Caldwell's son," she said slowly. "Yes." "The Caldwell Group." "Yes." She looked at the floor for a moment, then back at him. "The gas station sandwich. Real. I genuinely like them. The cracked dashboard. Also real. I bought that car myself. I like it. The electrical tape mirror. That one I should probably fix." She looked at him with something that was not anger and not shock, and not the calculation he had been afraid of. It was something more complicated. The expression of a person taking a true thing apart carefully to understand all its pieces before responding. "Why me?" she said finally. "Specifically. Why are you telling me specifically?" He looked at her in the doorway of her small apartment with the books and the mismatched chairs and the photograph of the gap-toothed girl on the refrigerator. "Because you got into my car in the rain and gave me an address before you looked at me," he said. "Because you tipped me for a free ride in the only way you had available, which was a handwritten phone number. Because you told me an apartment was small without apologizing for it. Because you bought extra vegetables without making it a moment." He paused. "Because every time I am with you, I feel like myself. Not a version of myself I prepared for the occasion. Just myself. And I have not felt that with another person in long enough that I stopped believing it was possible." Nora Ellis stood in her doorway for a long moment. "I need to think," she said. "I know. Take what you need. This changes things. I know that too." "It doesn't have to change everything," he said quietly. "The soup was still good. The walk was still 2 hours. The Thai place is still the best thing I have eaten in 3 months. None of that was the money. None of that was who my father is. That was you and me at a table with mismatched chairs." She pressed her lips together. Then she said, "Call me tomorrow." "Okay." "And Ethan?" "Yeah. Fix the mirror," she said. "Not because of the money. Because it's a safety issue." He stood in the hallway and felt something loosen in his chest that had been tight for longer than 3 months. Longer than 8 months. Longer than he had been honest with himself about. He walked down 3 flights of stairs and got into the 2009 Honda Civic with the cracked dashboard and the electrical tape mirror and sat in it for a moment on North Paulina Street. Then he called his father. "Sunday call is early," Richard Caldwell said when he answered. "I met someone," Ethan said. "A real one. I wanted you to know." His father was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Tell me." And Ethan did. All of it. The rain and the wrong car and the gas station sandwich and the 12 minutes and the handwritten number and the soup and the 2 hours by the lake and the small apartment with the books and the mismatched chairs and the gap-toothed girl in the refrigerator. His father listened to all of it without interrupting, which was how Ethan knew he understood. "She told you to fix the mirror," Richard said when he finished. "Yeah, I like her," his father said simply. Ethan looked up at the third-floor window of the Paulina Street building. The light was still on. "Me too," he said. "Me too." If this story got to you, please like this video right now and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell because there is always another story coming and you do not want to miss a single one. Drop a comment below and tell me, would you have told her the truth at the door or waited longer? I want to hear from every one of you. See you in the next one.